Hello everyone, and this is BioPhoenix here, and today we're taking a look at another PC Engine CD game, and that happens to be Fray in Magical Adventure CD Gaiden. So it was developed and published by Cabin and was released in 1994, and there's actually many versions of the game. So there was ones on the MSX, the PC-88, and the PC-98. But the PC Engine CD version happens to be the one that has quite a few differences that came out at a later date. So the core gameplay and the progression of the game is all the same throughout all the versions, but the thing is that the levels and the towns actually all look different. So if you think about it, the PC Engine CD version is sorta like a remake in some sense. Or maybe more accurately, it's like a retelling of the same game. And in case you don't know, this game is actually a spin-off to a series called Zoc. Yeah, like, would you ever figure it out just by looking at this name that it would be pronounced as that? Yeah, well, apparently that's what it is. So, it was actually an RPG series very similar to the East games, and it is so similar to the point that even the main character looks almost exactly like Adol, but if he was blue, and also both names of the series are, weirdly pronounced names with letters that are just so odd, like X and Y. But yeah, maybe one day I might have to take a look at the actual RPG series, but for now, I'm taking a look at the spin-off, which is more of an action platforming top-down shooter. Very similar to that Sharp 68000 game that I looked at in somewhat recently, being Star Princess. So now let's talk about the game's story. So apparently this game takes place between the first and the second Zoc game. So after the ending of the first game, one of the characters in that game, named Fray, wants to actually become like a stronger warrior, just so she can prove herself to Laduk. Yeah, that's the name of the main guy in Zoc, in case you're wondering, Laduk. But yeah, it's basically just her just trying to take on like evil bad guys, we all heard it all before. So yeah, nothing crazy there, but kind of interesting that a random character in an RPG just got up and got their own game. I kind of wish stuff like that happened more often. So now, as for the gameplay. So the main stages is that, you walk around, you shoot at enemies, and you just have to get to the end and fight the boss. And there is treasure chests you can pick up that give you items. Yes, there is a little bit of an inventory in this game. And there is many platforming sections you gotta get through as well. But once you beat one of these stages, it then goes to a town section where you just gotta walk around and talk to people. And this is where I feel like the game can get a little bit hard to figure out what you're supposed to do if you don't know how to read Japanese. But thankfully there are walkthroughs of this game available online, so I was actually able to get through it no problem. But also during these town sections, you can also restock on items, whether it be buying newer wands, buying items, and buying a shield to help protect you, and you can also go at the end and save your game and heal up. So it sounds a lot like an RPG, but it actually really isn't, given that there's no, leveling up in the game. Like, the only RPG element is really, like I said, going to the town and restocking, and also the fact that you get money in the game. But still, it's a pretty cool idea to have in a game like this, to just have, a town to go to. And once you figure out what to do in the town, then you get to go to the next stage, and there you go. So yeah, it's a pretty linear game, as you would expect. So now, as for the game's controls, they're pretty decent. So you got one button attacks, the other one jumps, and you move around, which is really obvious. And if you hold down the attack button when you have no magic equipped, then you can do a stronger shot. But if you hold it down with one equipped, then you're gonna use it up, so you gotta be wary of that. But as for the jumping in the game, I feel like the jumping in this game is pretty hard to make your mark. Now I know it is pretty challenging in a lot of games in this perspective when it comes to jumping controls and trying to make your mark, but I feel like this one feels a lot more strict with it compared to other ones that I've played. Because there's been times where I've jumped and it looks like I made it to the other ledge, but I actually really didn't, and I died and lost a lot of health for that. And this section with the logs right here, man, I gotta tell you, this part was really fucking frustrating for me. But that's really my only complaint with the controls, is that I feel like the hit detection when it comes to jumping and making your mark can be very strict. And for that reason, I would say that the controls are decent but not great. So now, let's get moving on and talk about the other things, like the graphics. And the graphics in this game I think are really great. So as you would expect, the game is very bright and colorful, has a really nice art style that I really like. And I really like the look of the heads-up display in this game. I think it looks pretty cool, where it has some nice details, and I like the fact that it has like a portrait that like changes like its face, like as like depending on how much health you have or the situation that you're in. Just little stuff like that I do really like about the game. And of course I do like the game's character designs, and yes, even though it does look very similar to an Ys game, but I mean, hey, like nothing wrong with that. And there's a bit of some like comedic stuff when it comes to like certain enemy designs are kind of funny looking. Like you got some like synchronized swimming character that trying to kill you. Like I thought that was amusing. And there's even a shoot 'em up section where you actually have to literally take out an airship, because, you know, those apparently existed in medieval times. So knowing that, the game does have its charms like that. And yeah, overall, I would say it's actually a really good looking game. And I would even go as far to say that even the other versions of the game look really nice too. So now, as for the game's music, I find the music overall in this game is a little disappointing, I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's not bad, but I do feel like that there's like only like a handful of tracks that I kinda like, but then like everything else I feel like it's just kinda there and not memorable. But I will say that the music is fitting for the game, like, you know, like the town theme definitely sounds like a town for sure, and you know, and it does have some like upbeat tracks that fit with like the more like comedic tone of the game, but most of the tracks in the game though, like they're nothing that would get me hyped and wanting to like make me listen to like the music like outside of the game, like so many other like my favorite soundtracks. And also, given that I am also a huge fan of a lot of soundtracks on the PC Engine CD, I do feel like it is a tad disappointing. Not bad, it's not terrible by any means, but I feel like it just could have been a lot better. So now, if you want to go out and buy yourself a copy of this game if you have a way to play it, well, I'm here telling you now that this is actually a pretty expensive game. So the cheapest I've seen it for was $137, and the highest I've seen it for was $180. So yeah, obviously that's way too high for a game like this. But if you do want to play the game while saying fuck you to those prices, well, you know the way to do it. So now, as for my overall thoughts on Fray and Magical Adventure CD, Gaiden, is that the game is decently enjoyable, but it isn't what I would say is like my favorite in terms of like this style of gameplay. So the game is very functioning, it works, and it is actually kind of fun, but the problem I have with this game is that, well, the one thing I mentioned is that I feel like that the jumping in this game takes a lot of time to get used to, and well, most of the time I just feel like it's a little bit on the frustrating side. And one thing I didn't mention yet is that the actual action parts of the game, you know, like the parts that you really want to play, a lot of the stages are like way too short. Like a lot of the times it feels like I only play them for like less than 2 minutes and then I'm like already at the boss. So I kind of wish that the game's stages were a little bit longer than what they are. Not too long, of course, but I feel like it needs to have that right balance. Like, it's a little sad that, like, the action stages feel shorter than, like, the town sections. Although that might just be me just trying to fuck around and figure it out on my own without having to look it up every time. But aside of these few things though, I do think the game is decently enjoyable. Like, I think it is actually pretty fun when it actually gets going, but I do feel that, you know, there are other games in this style that I like better. For an example, that Star Princess game on Sharp X68000, like, that game is great. Like, I love that game. And the Valkyrie game on PC Engine is also really good too, and I like that one more as well. But just for like a random ass idea for a spin-off though, I don't think it's a bad game. And well, I don't think it's a bad game in general, I just think that maybe it's like a little bit like above average and decent. And you know, nothing wrong with that. Like, it's okay to have games like that every once in a while. So with that said, I would recommend giving it a try if this is like your type of game, but of course, don't pay for those stupid ass prices. So that's all I gotta say on this game. So as always, thanks for watching, commenting, and have yourselves a great day.
Put that cookie down! Now!